Tonight on Panorama, how one of Britain's biggest companies broke the law to sell cigarettes.
They said that we must tap their telephones and follow them all over, but they were definitely breaking the law. Through me.
We reveal how British American Tobacco paid bribes to sabotage its rivals.
Yeah, that's shocking. Do you mind if I ask you over what period was that?
We're talking years.
Whew.
And secured access to police files and security cameras.
So there were no rules.
There were no rules, you're right. The rules were there to be bent.
And we expose the corrupt deal to pay off a notorious dictator.
I had to make it clear that they're going to expect a nice thick envelope of notes, you know.
In South Africa's rural heartland, one company dominates tobacco production. 90% of the crop is bought by British American Tobacco.
Tobacco.
Yes, tobacco.
BAT sold a staggering 638 billion cigarettes last year. And South Africa is one of its most important markets.
More tobacco.
Yeah, we train up.
The company has been operating here for more than 100 years.
Smell is very powerful, isn't it? It's that is tobacco. No doubt about that. All the tobacco in this area all goes to BAT.
Yeah.
So they dominate the market.
They dominate the market, yes, I can say that.
British American Tobacco is one of the UK's 10 biggest companies. It made almost £10 billion profit last year.
BAT has strong foundations.
And it claims to be an ethical company.
And behaving ethically in all we do.
It says it's committed to the highest standards of conduct and transparency wherever it operates.
BAT, building a better tomorrow.
But this isn't the first time we've investigated BAT. 6 years ago, we exposed how it used bribery to undermine anti-smoking legislation in East Africa.
Sir, can I ask you a quick question? I'm from Panorama. Why did you not respond to our emails about bribery? Is that the nature of BAT, sir, that you just put up with bribery?
Our revelations prompted a 5-year investigation by the UK Serious Fraud Office. Now, this January, the SFO concluded there wasn't enough evidence for a prosecution. But working with the Bureau of Investigative Journalism and the University of Bath, we found new whistleblowers. They say BAT went to extraordinary lengths to sell cigarettes. These are the forests of Mahaking in remote and rural South Africa. Peter Snyders lives here now, but he used to have a very different life. Spying and bribing, breaking the law to help BAT sabotage its rivals.
They said that we must tap their telephones, do physical surveillance on them, on their trucks, where they're going, where they offload, and follow them all over.
You would pay bribes, you'd use tracking devices,
you would effectively hire spies. Is that legal?
No, not actually.
Did you know it wasn't legal?
Yeah, I knew it wasn't legal.
But you did it anyway?
Yeah.
Did BAT know you were doing that?
They were giving us money to do that.
When you pay bribes, did BAT know you were paying bribes?
They definitely knew it because I have to specify, in my invoice, you have to specify what you use the money for.
Half a world away, another man is running away from his past. Francois van der Westhausen also used to do BAT's dirty work in South Africa. He too broke the law for British American tobacco.
You used corruption and bribery.
Correct.
Did BAT know about that?
Correct, they knew.
How many people were you paying then? You personally?
Me personally, probably every month, 15 people.
Did anyone in BAT say, hang on, this is illegal, we oughtn't to be doing it?
No. It was a system on the go. It was a system in progress, and I was just part of it.
BAT's secret operation in southern Africa ran from 2000 to 2016. We have spoken to a dozen insiders. Many, like Peter and Francois, had worked for South Africa's apartheid police force. They say their job was to destroy the competition for BAT.
South Africa is a huge tobacco market, and BAT controls the majority of sales. 70% of the market has billions of cigarettes every year.
There is a problem with cigarette smuggling and tax dodging in South Africa, which BAT claimed some manufacturers were involved in. BAT said it was helping the government curb these illicit sales. But our evidence suggests BAT went far beyond that.
At the time, BAT was pronouncing on illicit trade being a big problem in South Africa.
So why would it help them then to say that they were fighting illicit trade? What's the benefit to BAT?
It was much easier to say you can only be low price because you're not paying tax. And therefore, they tell to the South African Revenue Service, we will partner you to get rid of this illicit trade problem.
So to be clear, you're saying that BAT portrayed themselves as doing the right thing and helping the state fight illicit trade, and actually were trying to undermine their rivals.
Correct. All they were trying to do was to protect the market share.
To undermine its rivals, BAT turned to a private security company. Forensic Security Services, or FSS. It's where our two whistleblowers worked.
Were BAT genuinely interested in tackling illicit trade, or did you believe that it really was all about undermining rivals?
I think it was undermining rivals.
How many successful prosecutions were there from the work you did for FSS for BAT?
I can't remember one.
You're there to sort of undermine this illegal system. I think most of us would imagine that that ends up in the courts and prosecutions, and you can't think of one case.
Yeah, no, I can't think of any case now.
The instruction that we got from management, BAT management and FSS management, at the time was to close down the opposition. I reported everything back to them. I even got the instructions from BAT, personally. Personal instructions were given to me to do these kind of things. Industrial espionage, yes.
BAT was under pressure from falling demand and cheaper competitors. It claimed some of its rivals were avoiding tax. BAT turned to FSS to recruit an army of spies and informants. We've obtained thousands of documents that show how they did it. Internal reports, emails and invoices. FSS registered its informants and gave them code names. They had almost 200 special informants, or SINs, on their books. Some were paid the equivalent of hundreds of pounds a month.
FSS would meet informants at fast food restaurants like this. They dole out cash to workers from rival factories. They would then sign the receipts and get someone from BAT to witness the payments.
Informants were paid to report what they saw at work, giving daily updates on production. This matters because paying bribes in exchange for information like this appears to break UK law. And the emails confirm the payments were approved by local BAT managers.
BAT in South Africa, were they aware that you were doing all those things?
They said in most of the management meetings where these things were discussed and the operational planning was discussed.
Is there any way that they could have thought that that was just legitimate practice that they didn't understand?
No, not at all. Not at all.
So they knew it was illegal?
Correct.
I think it's appalling. It's easy to dismiss South Africa or Africa as being countries that don't care about corruption because it's been so rife. And it's true that it is a significant challenge in the region, but it's really unacceptable because of the large multinational status that some companies enjoy and feeling like they can be immune from any kind of prosecution.
Does that make you angry?
It makes me furious.
It wasn't just local BAT people who knew what was going on. Our documents show staff from the company's London headquarters paid and managed some of the informants. This one shows a source was recruited by a BAT manager in London. So does this one and this one. They also made corrupt payments directly from London to informants. BAT staff would load thousands of pounds onto the sort of credit card normally used by holidaymakers. Anyone with the PIN number could then withdraw the cash in South Africa. It's a payment method sometimes used by organised crime to evade detection.
It's a preferred way of money laundering by cocaine cartels and extremist terrorist groupings.
And it's being used by BAT?
They use these systems to pay their operatives in other jurisdictions in a manner so that you can't trace who paid the money or who's using the money.
British American Tobacco didn't answer our detailed questions, but said it wasn't unlawful to pay sources to gather information about criminal behaviour. We emphatically reject the mischaracterisation of our conduct. Our efforts in combating illicit trade have been aimed at helping law enforcement agencies. But our evidence strongly suggests it wasn't all about helping law enforcement.
BAT wanted to know what its competitors were doing so it could disrupt their business. Factory workers at rival companies like Gold Leaf were paid to tell FSS when trucks loaded with cigarettes were leaving.
FSS gave its informants phones to pass on information and to take pictures of the registration plates. Surveillance teams from FSS followed the trucks and called in tips about supposed smuggling, so customs officers and police would be waiting to detain the lorries. It could then take weeks to prove the cigarettes were legal and get them released.
You see this device over here? This is a tracking unit which we found on one of the trucks.
So that was on one of the trucks?
This was on one of the trucks. And they would pull the truck over based on what this tracking device is feeding them. And the police will now make up all kinds of allegations or suspicions, create suspicions to say that either the stock is stolen or it's fake, something to just basically detain the stock.
So this idea of illicit trade, you're saying, is an excuse for targeting your company?
Yes, absolutely.
And any prosecutions?
None whatsoever. None whatsoever. Gold Leaf Tobacco's record is so clean. We've never had a fine. We've never had a prosecution. Nothing of the sort.
So this was prepared by FSS. It's about your company. So it's a brief on your company.
The documents show how BAT bribed at least 6 workers at Gold Leaf, from shop floor to managers.
Yeah, that's shocking. Do you mind if I ask you over what period was that?
We're talking years. We're talking years that went on. BAT people would come from London to recruit spies.
Whew. Richard, I mean, this is, you're going to send me back to my office to start preparing a summons.
Is that the correct response, do you think, from what you've heard?
No, absolutely. I mean, if that's true, that is blatantly unlawful. It's anti-competitive of the highest order.
It was a lot more than just paying informers. It seems BAT was prepared to go much further to damage its rivals. Our evidence strongly suggests customs officers were paid to do BAT's bidding, and that the police were bribed too.
We would target a certain individual that's working at a unit within the police. We would approach him, offer him a much better salary, 3 times more, 4 times more what he would earn in the police. Gather him there. He had a direct link to all the friends within the unit. There we would go. We would manipulate that unit. Disruption, disruption, disruption. We would abuse the intelligence law enforcement agency to do precisely that.
BAT got access to information from police files and the vehicle registration system. And police cameras were used to watch its competitors. Like this cigarette factory in Johannesburg.
So this is the Carney Links cigarette factory. And up there, at the top of the street, that is camera 5 on the police CCTV network. Now, BAT managed to secure a feed from that camera to watch this factory.
These are the pictures from that camera at that time.
They would often raid our factory, and whenever our trucks were moving, they seemed to know when our trucks were moving, and wherever our trucks were going, they would turn up with the police, with the taxman. They would then either impound our stock or confiscate our trucks, or just disrupt our business continuously. And every time we would win, it would never go to court. We would show our documentation, we would be able to justify what we were doing, and everything was returned to us. But if you're a small business, it hampers your cash flow dramatically.
What was that like?
It was terrible. To survive that was very, very difficult. I'm supplying 1% or 2% of the market. Why do they go to this much trouble to try and keep us out of the market? It's crazy.
BAT says the surveillance was all about stopping the sale of illegal cigarettes. But neither Carney Links or Gold Leaf were ever prosecuted as a result.
think there's an arrogance, and I think it's quite infuriating when you think about the way in which they've been able to manipulate both public officials and intrude into the rights of individuals and the public, and in a really concerning and unacceptable manner.
They had no qualms bribing people, using sophisticated spy equipment to illegally invade on the privacy of people or listen to their conversations or access their communications.
BAT is the 8th biggest British company that's an established blue chip, stock market registered, everybody's pensions company. What do you think about a company like BAT through FSS doing the sort of things that you've just described?
No, I think it's utterly disgusting. I think it's shocking. But they're doing it because they're getting away with it.
British American Tobacco says the allegations are not new and have been investigated. And it rejects the allegation that any steps were taken with the aim of impacting the lawful activities of legitimate competitors or for commercial advantage. We found it wasn't just South Africa where BAT was prepared to break the law. Its illegal operation crossed over the border to Zimbabwe too.
And we've discovered how far BAT was prepared to go to get what it wanted. Documents suggest a bribe was paid to Zimbabwe's former dictator, Robert Mugabe.
BAT was paying FSS to conduct a secret operation against its rivals there. The plan was to reduce the production capacity at factories in Zimbabwe, ultimately resulting in the closure of 3 of them. Robert Mugabe's regime didn't want FSS in the country, so FSS relied on a local firm to do the dirty work. But the Zimbabwean company got caught spying, and 3 of its directors were charged with illegal surveillance.
These documents show a plan was hatched to get the directors off the hook and to protect BAT's name. BAT was told it had to make a large donation to Robert Mugabe's party to get the men freed.
This man was sent in to negotiate the deal for BAT. He doesn't want to be identified. He says he bribed Zimbabwean government officials to set up a meeting with them.
I had to make it clear that they're going to expect a nice thick envelope of notes, you know. I would be given a lump sum of money as an operational budget. And out of that, I would always give a handshake and a nice wodge of cash to the principals, just to warm them to the idea.
Our documents suggest BAT paid for those bribes. Cash was given to the man who set it up, Special Informant number 106. The reference is SOS Zimbabwe, and this is one payment of 90,000 rand or $6,000. The Zimbabwean officials said that with the upcoming presidential elections, a donation to Mugabe's party, ZANU-PF, would pave the way for negotiations to continue. With this donation, they could then go back to the president to get this problem sorted out. They wanted a payment of between 300 and 500,000 US dollars, effectively a bribe to Robert Mugabe. We can't prove the money was handed over. But documents and 3 insiders have confirmed that BAT was aware of the terms of the deal.
They would have to pay to get what they want, including these 3 men out of prison.
That's exactly the deal that was brokered.
Is there a chance that because that meeting happened, friendships were formed and they got what they wanted without paying any money?
Absolutely not. That's fantasy land.
So you get what you want by paying the money?
And only by paying the money.
Is there any possibility that BAT wouldn't have known about this?
That's laughable. You know, the reality is that who has $500,000 lying around? It's got to come from an organization that does.
Within days of the deal being offered, all 3 directors were free. And FSS later went back to work in Zimbabwe for BAT.
How serious an issue would it be if BAT were found to have paid a bribe of hundreds of thousands of dollars to a man like Robert Mugabe, a dictator?
If this is established, I think the level of impunity that we're seeing is completely alarming. This idea that a company can do as it pleases, can go into countries outside of its own and seek to obviate the rules of those countries is really something that shows a disregard for both the law as well as the people of the country.
British American Tobacco didn't answer our questions about the Zimbabwe payments, but it didn't deny bribing a dictator. The company cut ties with FSS in 2016. It said acting responsibly and with integrity underpins the foundations of our culture. BAT fully cooperated with the SFO's investigation, which included allegations relating to South Africa, and resulted in no action. While the Serious Fraud Office is aware of some of the allegations, it hasn't seen all our evidence, and it hasn't spoken to our whistleblowers. We think BAT still has a case to answer.
I hope that the Serious Fraud Office make contact with me. I hope they make contact with each and every individual that worked for FSS and being paid by BAT to do this illegitimate stuff. My bank accounts are there, go look. I received that money. I handed it out in cash.
If you were approached by, for example, the British authorities, would you tell them what you've told me?
Yes, I will.
Why?
I've got nothing to hide, and I think that's the right thing to do.
Panorama has already revealed how British American Tobacco used corruption to undermine health reforms. Now we've exposed how for 16 years it used bribery to damage its rivals. BAT, the company that stopped at nothing to sell cigarettes.